Hello and welcome to a new episode of my Flosstube. My name is Jacob. I am the owner of Modern Folk Embroidery and I also design the patterns there. Today is quite a jam-packed episode. I've got 4 brand new releases that I want to show you. I'm going to keep this video as short as possible, however, as I want to sort of talk a little bit more in depth about some of the samplers that I'm talking in this episode in future episodes. However, shall we just dive right in and start talking about stuff? So the first one that I have as a new release, I should tell you, this is actually a really exciting collaboration before I dive into the patterns. It's a really nice collaboration that I've done with Caroline from Evertoad and the fantastic folks at Leo and Roxy Yarn Company. They've been dyeing lots and lots of amazing threads for me, so they will be perfect for the samplers. And Caroline was really amazing in wanting to work with me again and doing this project, so yeah, that's really exciting for me. So all 4 patterns can be purchased with threads and lots of options available at Caroline's website, www.evertoad.com. So if you want a printed pattern, if you want a printed pattern with floss, or if you want to get just the floss, or if you want to get the whole kit and caboodle, Caroline can help you out. There's some kits that have linen, some kits don't. Just read through the options. She's got loads of options and she can completely cover you, hopefully. Just a word of warning that kits are selling fast, as they usually are, so don't wait too long because you might regret not getting your hands on some of these amazing kits. I have seen them and they are just perfect. So I'm going to dive right in now. All of the links, by the way, will be below here as well. So there will be the link to Caroline's website. She has got all the options there for you, and the individual PDFs. If you wanted just the PDFs, you can get them from my website. So let's dive right in with the first sampler. So the first one is an adaptation of this pattern here, and this was stitched in around 1809 by a very young girl in Ireland called Margaret, and Margaret was the daughter of John Robertson and Margaret Penrose Strangman, and sadly she died in 1809 and she was only 9 years old. The reason probably that she did not finish this sampler was because she just was never old enough to sadly finish this one, and I purchased it mainly because I just love the history behind this sampler. I loved her stitching, I love the history, I love the fact that someone in a beautiful hand wrote a very moving note on this sampler and tacked it to the sampler. But it didn't sit right with me to make a new sampler, so I didn't want to just sort of use all of this stuff on this sampler and then add a whole bunch of other stuff in the center here to sort of finish her work. She never was old enough to finish her work, and I didn't quite want to finish that for her either. So I decided to instead use all 21 medallions but rearrange them and then use a quote to finish the sampler. So the quote is in a very traditional way, as you can see in the image that I'm putting here now. It's done in a very traditional way, 1/1 on linen. The medallions are all stitched over 2 threads, so the letters are only over 1. And it's a quote by William Penn, and it reads, "Force may subdue, but love gains, and he that forgives first wins the laurel." And I thought that was a really beautiful quote from William Penn. It's from a book that he wrote called The Fruits of Solitude. Not quite The Fruits of Plenty, but yeah, The Fruits of Solitude. It's a beautiful book, that one, and I thought Margaret would probably appreciate that little quote, and she might even be familiar with it because it was such a popular book at the time. People would have probably, Quaker families might have had that book in their libraries. What I found moving and interesting with this particular sampler, which I have not reproduced, is that during some point, some girl must have thought like that this was quite a nice big empty piece of linen, and of course this was really beautiful linen, and she must have thought like that's a waste of linen, so she stitched two, not quite finished either, but two pretty little bands on here, which are just lovely. But yeah, I felt like they probably had not been done by little Margaret, so I left them out of the sampler. But I will talk a little bit more about Margaret herself. She was born in Ireland in 1800 in a town called Moat, and yeah, I will talk about her and her family in a future episode, because I do feel that she deserves a proper episode where I talk a little bit more about her. But that's this one, and it's called Love Games, and that's out now. I'll put her carefully here. The second sampler, which is also the one that I have actually finished stitching, and I had actually originally planned to do a Flosstube yesterday, but yesterday I had slept really poorly and I felt like I just wanted to sit and do a bit of stitching instead. So I literally blasted through this sampler, and I'm very excited to say that she is finished. So this is the finished sampler, and this is AIO 1844, as you can see here, and I absolutely love this one. I don't know anything about the girl who stitched this. There's a couple of girls who sort of might be the person that stitched this sampler, but it's hard to go by when the only thing you have is AIO, and I don't even know where she was from, because stylistically this sampler looks, it's a black sampler, so it could have very well been stitched in Groningen in the north of the Netherlands, but there's also a few things that make me think that she might have been Frisian. For instance, this Tree of Life, for instance, is a typical Frisian thing. However, that does not mean that it could not show up on a sampler from Groningen. I know that some samplers have little elements like these on there. There's for the rest not many clues, but sort of the symmetry and the fact that it's a black sampler, I am leaning a little bit more to the fact that it might be a Groningen sampler, this one. This one has only full crosses. However, this Tree of Life has these really, I'll try and get it a little bit closer to the camera and I hope it focuses for you. As you can see, there's these beautiful little eyes, I always call them, and they're a lot of fun to stitch. And I have stitched my sampler on hand-dyed 32 count linen, and I used one strand of charcoal on this one. I mentioned in a previous video that I was stitching with charcoal, but I actually meant chalkboard. But yeah, that was there's two Leo and Roxy flosses. I'll show them here actually. So these are the two. There's a whole bunch of amazing blacks. There's Vampish, there's chalkboard, there's charcoal. They're all really beautiful, and they're just perfect to stitch with when you want to stitch black samplers. But as you can see, this is charcoal, and I don't know if it shows up very well on the camera, but as you can, yeah, you can actually see it a little bit. You see that the chalkboard has a little bit more variegation and is a little bit more grey, while the charcoal is a black, and it does have variegation as well. And they're both beautiful to stitch with. And I think that just using one, I know there is a whole debate about coverage with cross stitches, and I talked about it last time as well. I just love an open texture, I'll get this a little bit closer here. And then you can see that the coverage, I think it works really well, and it gives it a really nice sort of period appearance. I really like how it looks. Yeah, so I'm really happy with this one. I have literally finished it half an hour ago. I was going to record my video this morning, but then I decided that I might be able to put some 1800 crosses in from the morning, which is a bit crazy. So I stitched quite a few of the animals at the top this morning, and I had to do the full tree of life here. And yeah, I'm very happy with how it looks. There are no decorative stitches on this sampler. This is actually, that's also one of the reasons why I think it might be a Groningen sampler. I've noticed that some Groningen samplers have these sort of large block letters, but often they're just stitched in crosses, and that was the case with this sampler as well. Frisian samplers seem to favour eyelets more than anything, so they will do slightly more decorative letters often. For this sampler, I chose to stitch mine in rice stitches, as I thought it was just a bit of fun to do that instead of just doing cross stitches. Gives it slightly different texture. It's not very noticeable, but when you get up really close and you see it, then you can. Right now I've just ironed this piece quickly and folded it so I can present it to you, but I'll be hemming off this piece and then it will be framed. I will show you the original sampler as well, which is in extremely poor shape, and when I bought it the sides were completely glued to the backing and folded around, so it was basically cutting off the sampler. As you see, it's horribly frayed. However, it somehow held together quite well, and when you look at this you might be wondering, like, why is there sort of golden thread in there? So the golden threads were originally black as well, and because the fabric has been washed and has been exposed to light, some of the black threads were dyed with different materials than the other black threads, and some of the black threads are still black, some of the threads are now a beautiful golden color, but originally this was intended to be black. And I have charted it as a monochrome sampler. You can choose to stitch it with all the colors, or as I have done, in black. But yeah, it was quite exciting to find out that the whole top row was it was literally folded over like this. This was all glued, and it was done with animal glue, and it meant that I had to do something absolutely terrifying, which is do a test to see if the colors don't run, and then I had to use hot water basically to sort of soften the glue, try to get it out of the fabric, and I managed to clean it and preserve it. So the next step is to sew it back onto a backing and frame it. It is an extremely fragile sampler. It's already looking much better from when I purchased it. But yeah, it's always exciting when you find new things on a sampler. So that's the second pattern, and like I said, this one has only full crosses, and the central motif has some back stitches. So if you load it into Pattern Keeper, just be aware that the back stitches won't show up. You will have to either print that on or work from just the PDF on a tablet. The third pattern that I have to share with you is, I'm very excited about this one, and it is a pattern that is sort of a continuation from a pattern that I did a couple of years ago to commemorate the 200th anniversary of the passing of Jane Austen. And for this one, I was talking to Caroline about this, and Caroline was asking me if she could put that in her shop, and I said, like, yes you can, but it's been out a long time, and I'm afraid that a lot of people have already charted this or stitched this pattern, but I've been toying with the idea for some time of doing a company piece. So what do you think of that? And luckily Caroline was very enthusiastic about that. So basically the Charlotte Bronte sampler was born, and I picked the quote, "I am no bird," and I absolutely love the book. It's a beautiful title, and it's from that's the volume here that I purchased recently. I'm listening to the audiobook at the moment, which is really well done, but I thought it would be nice to have a nice hardback at home as well of this one. And it is from a passage where Jane talks with Mr. Rochester, and he grabs hold of her, and she wants to sort of get out of his grip, and then she basically has the quote that she is not a bird, and it's a beautiful quote, I thought, because it really sort of shows you the spirit of Jane, and it really shines through her independence and her free will that's very strong throughout the whole book. So I really love that quote. This pattern is only full crosses except for 2 points. The mouth of both Mr. Rochester and Jane are one single backstitch. So just keep in mind, you can fully load this in Pattern Keeper if you wish so, but it won't show you that one backstitch. So keep in mind that there is just that little one backstitch on the mouth. Again, this pattern can be purchased through Caroline's website and through mine as a PDF only. And the last release that I have is called the Moonshine Cabin, and Caroline can tell you better about this, so I won't talk too much about it. But yeah, I'm quite excited about this little hygge sort of little pattern. It's a circular pattern. You can put it in a hoop depending on how fine your linen of choice is. It's not a very small pattern. Caroline has all of the colors and everything, and she's got an amazing bag to go with this. Yeah, just check out her stuff. I want to try and say Caroline more in this video than she did my name in her last video, so just make sure to go to Caroline's website, because Caroline is amazing. That brings me basically to the end of this video, except that there is one thing I want to share with you about Black Sampler November. I talked about Black Sampler October a while ago, but because logistically there was just so much to do, and this whole year it's a bit like an avalanche, isn't it? It seems to go so fast and everything is just rushing so much. So we were saying, like, okay, maybe we shouldn't do October as Black Sampler month, but we could do November as the Black Sampler month, and I'm very happy with it. It's my birth month anyway, so I see it as a little bit of a birthday treat for myself. So the whole month of November, and however long you want really, but I wanted to encourage people to stitch black samplers, and I didn't want to make it just the big me show. So you can literally stitch anything you want with black floss, as long as it's a black sampler or a black pattern. Stitch it and use the hashtag Black Sampler November. I know there's so many amazing designers out there that have samplers that either can be stitched in one color or are already charted as black samplers. I'm thinking Long Dock Samplers has some beautiful ones, whilst Iris Naps has some amazing ones. Michelle from Mama Loves You GB, she has some great samples that would work really well. And there's loads of designers, but that's just a few that pop in my head right now. But yeah, check out other designers, check out their patterns. Just look at your own stash. Is there a monochrome sampler? And I really hope you will join in on the fun. So I have posted one post on my Instagram with that hashtag. So if you click on the hashtag, you can click within Instagram on follow, and then you will get updates from other people as well that use that hashtag. I think it will be really exciting to see what everyone will be picking out and what everyone will be stitching. So yeah, I do hope you will join us in this project. If you want floss, I can highly recommend Leo and Roxy floss. You can stitch it with any floss you want, of course. If you want to use silks, if you want to use cotton, if you want to use wool, yeah, whatever you want to stitch with, feel free to do that. That's Black Sampler November. Finally, one last thing. I did a Q&A some time ago, and I thought it would be fun to release part 2 of that Q&A. So if you have questions, do pop them in with this video. So just plonk your questions in the comments below. I will take all of them down. I will go through them. If you want, make sure to check out the previous video as well. I'll put a little link in there as well so you can see the first Q&A. And yes, I think that's it. So if you have questions, do let me know in the comments below, and there will be a second Q&A coming, I guess, soonish. Who knows? With that all said and done, I am going to say goodbye. There is a little song that I recorded for you guys. All I want to say is that it was inspired by my comment when I was talking about the epicness of Lord of the Rings sort of length video of the Q&A. So I thought, like, since it's going to be at least 2 parts, who knows, it might be a Lord of the Rings kind of trilogy, I thought I probably should do a Lord of the Rings song. So I recorded something. It's silly. And I made the mistake of doing the instrumentals and the backing vocals first and then trying to sing in the same pitch as Enya. And I didn't know, but Enya's a girl, so she's got kind of a high voice, which women seem to have. So yeah, anyway, enjoy or not, I'll leave you to it. Be safe, stay well, look after one another, and I will see you soon again. Bye bye. Did you see my Q&A? It's still there now for you. Were your queries answered? Did you like this nonsense too? You could ask me many more, and I'll get to them in part 2. Lowry stand in woman, just